In the heart of what was once bustling America, a fragile bubble of safety stood against the relentless tide of the undead. The last safe zone, a heavily fortified city enclave, had withstood the horrors of the zombie apocalypse longer than any other place. Walls thick with rusted metal and barricades made from the remnants of abandoned vehicles formed a perimeter that had saved thousands of lives. But now, that sanctuary was about to fall. Jackson Harper, a former emergency responder turned reluctant survivor, stood atop the western watchtower. His eyes scanned the horizon through a pair of cracked binoculars, searching for signs of movement. The sun was dipping below the gray clouds, casting long shadows over the city's skeletal remains. The silence was oppressive, the kind that made your skin crawl. Inside the walls, tension simmered. Supplies were running dangerously low, and the strain of constant vigilance was fraying nerves. The survivors were a mix of hardened veterans and frightened newcomers, all clinging to hope. But hope was a luxury that might soon vanish. Jackson's radio crackled, breaking the silence. "East Gate Patrol, report." A shaky voice responded, "Multiple targets approaching. Zombies, and something else. Movements fast, coordinated." His heart sank. Coordination among the undead was unnatural, it meant something worse was coming. The last safe zone's commander, Captain Lena Morales, was already mobilizing her team. "Lock down the perimeter. No one in or out. And keep your eyes open. This isn't just a typical horde." Jackson hurried down from the tower and made his way to the armory, passing groups of survivors prepping weapons or reinforcing barricades. The air smelled of dust and fear. He grabbed a worn but reliable crossbow, his weapon of choice when stealth was crucial. As dusk fell, a chilling growl echoed from outside the walls. The undead were gathering, a mass of staggering bodies with empty eyes and torn clothes. But Jackson noticed something different. Some moved with unnatural speed, their groans distorted and filled with a strange intelligence. And worse, the horde seemed to be surrounding the city with purpose. Suddenly, a sharp explosion tore through the air from the east side of the city. The survivors froze. The east gate was under attack. Jackson sprinted toward the command center, dodging frantic citizens. Inside, Captain Morales was coordinating a defense with grim determination. "They're trying to breach the east gate. If they break through, we lose everything." The radio squawked again, a voice panicked and fragmented. "There's someone inside. Not one of us. He's wearing their skin." A silence fell over the room. No one spoke. Everyone knew what that meant, an enemy hiding among the living, using the dead as camouflage. Trust was shattered in an instant. Jackson's mind raced. The last safe zone wasn't just fighting an external threat anymore. The danger lurked within. "Spread out. Find the intruder. Anyone caught hiding or acting suspicious gets detained," Morales ordered. Jackson volunteered for the search party, moving through the narrow alleys and shadowed corridors of the settlement. Every creak, every whisper, made his skin prick. He couldn't tell who was friend or foe. The boundary between life and death blurred in the half-light. Then, a sudden scream cut through the tension. Jackson ran toward the sound and found a young woman, her face pale and eyes wide with terror. "They're inside. They killed Thomas, he was one of us." A heavy silence followed, then frantic activity. Survivors armed themselves, scanning for signs of betrayal. Jackson's grip tightened on the crossbow. In the darkness beyond the city's walls, the undead horde pressed in, but the worst enemy might be someone they never expected, a living shadow among them, betraying the fragile hope they clung to. As night fully descended, the walls of the last safe zone trembled under attack. Every shadow held a secret. Every face, a question. And in dead America, trust had become the deadliest gamble of all. Would you like me to continue with part 2? It will pick up with the immediate aftermath of the breach and the growing paranoia inside the safe zone. The echoes of Thomas's death lingered like a heavy fog throughout the last safe zone. Jackson's breath came in shallow gasps as he scanned the darkened alleys, crossbow at the ready. The intruder, whoever, or whatever they were, had shattered the fragile safety the survivors had fought so hard to maintain. Trust was no longer a given. It was a question whispered behind closed doors, an invisible threat gnawing at the edges of their sanity. Captain Morales moved through the chaos like a seasoned general, barking orders, rallying her people. Secure the perimeter. Double the patrols. No one moves without clearance. Yet, despite the precautions, unease spread faster than the undead outside. Every glance felt like a potential accusation. Every silence, a lurking menace. The intruder was no ordinary enemy, they were cunning, blending in, wearing the skin of the dead to get closer. Jackson caught sight of a flicker of movement near the makeshift market, where survivors bartered for dwindling supplies. He moved in silently, heart pounding, following the shadow like a predator. Suddenly, a figure darted behind a barricade, a man, but with an unnatural gait, his eyes too hollow, his skin pale and stretched. Jackson raised his crossbow. "Stop! Show your hands." The figure froze but didn't respond. Instead, a guttural growl escaped its lips, and it lunged forward with unnatural speed. Jackson fired. The bolt struck true, embedding in the intruder's shoulder. It howled, staggering back into the shadows. But as it fell, Jackson saw something that chilled him to the bone. The flesh beneath its torn jacket was not human. It was mottled, raw, and shifting as if alive yet dead. A scream erupted nearby as more undead surged through a breached wall. The breach was wider than they feared. The last safe zone's defenses were crumbling. Back at the command center, Captain Morales stared at the digital map, red dots exploding across the city's perimeter. "We can't hold them all. Evacuation plans need to be ready. If we lose this place, we lose everything." Among the survivors, rumors spread like wildfire. Some whispered of betrayal from within. Others believed the undead were evolving, growing smarter, more dangerous. The line between myth and reality blurred, and panic threatened to fracture the fragile community. Jackson returned with grim news. "They're not just zombies anymore. Something's controlling them. And someone's using that to get inside." Morales nodded grimly. "We've got to find the traitor before they open the gates for the horde." As night deepened, the survivors fortified their homes, bolting doors, and whispering prayers to anything that might hear. Jackson patrolled the perimeter with a small team, eyes sharp for movement. Then, out of the darkness, a figure emerged, wounded, desperate, but unmistakably human. It was Sarah, a medic who had gone missing 2 days ago. "I escaped," she gasped. "There's no time. The safe zone, it's compromised. The dead are smarter, and someone's leading them." Her words sent a shiver through the group. Trust was shattered. Hope was a flickering candle in a storm. And in dead America, survival meant one truth above all: trust no one. Sarah's sudden reappearance sent ripples of shock and suspicion through the last safe zone. Her bloodied clothes and wild eyes told a harrowing tale, but also raised an uneasy question: could she be trusted? Jackson watched her closely as she caught her breath in the dimly lit command center. "Tell us everything," Captain Morales demanded. Sarah swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "After the East Gate breach, I was separated from my group. I saw things. The dead aren't just mindless anymore. They're being led. There's a pattern, almost like they're hunting." She hesitated, then added, "And someone inside, they're working with them. Using the chaos." A heavy silence filled the room. None dared voice the unthinkable, a traitor within their midst. Morales rubbed her temples, frustration and fear etched on her face. "We need to root them out before they tear us apart from the inside." Jackson felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. In this world, trust was survival. But now, trust was a weapon against them. Outside the walls, the undead horde grew bolder. Screams echoed in the distance as pockets of survivors were overrun. The city's once vibrant streets were now battlegrounds, the line between life and death erased. Inside, tensions erupted. Accusations flew. Longtime friends eyed each other warily. Supplies vanished mysteriously. Every shadow felt like a threat. Jackson teamed up with a small group of trusted survivors to investigate. They moved through the ruins of the marketplace, following faint tracks and whispers. "Someone's been here recently," muttered Maya, a sharp-eyed scout. "Look at these footprints, they're too organized." Their search led them to a hidden underground tunnel beneath the city, a forgotten passage from before the apocalypse. The air was thick with decay and secrets. As they ventured deeper, a low, guttural growl echoed. The group froze. Suddenly, from the darkness, a figure stepped forward, half shambling, half human, its face grotesquely distorted, yet strangely familiar. "Who's there?" Jackson demanded, raising his crossbow. The creature's eyes flickered with a strange awareness. It hissed, then spoke in a ragged voice, "You don't understand. This world is changing. We're the future." Shock rippled through the group. This was no ordinary undead, it was something else. Something evolved. Before they could react, the tunnel entrance trembled as heavy footsteps approached. The horde was closing in. Back at the safe zone, Captain Morales coordinated a desperate defense. "If they breach the tunnels, it's over," she warned. The survivors prepared for a final stand. Every heartbeat counted. Every decision could mean life or death. Jackson glanced at his team, the weight of their fate heavy in his eyes. The walls were cracking, both outside and within. In dead America, the last safe zone was crumbling, and with it, the last hope for humanity. Would you like me to continue with Part 4? It will dive deeper into the survivors' fight for control and uncover shocking betrayals. The underground tunnel echoed with the distant moans and shuffling feet of the advancing horde. Jackson and his team stood frozen for a moment, their hearts pounding. The figure before them, the creature that spoke with eerie awareness, was no ordinary threat. It was a harbinger of a new, terrifying reality. Jackson tightened his grip on the crossbow. "What do you mean, we're the future?" he demanded, his voice steady but wary. The creature's hollow eyes flickered with something like sorrow. "The dead, we've learned. We're changing. The virus, the infection, it's not just a curse. It's evolution. Soon, the lines will blur completely." Before anyone could respond, a sharp metallic clang sounded behind them. Instinctively, Jackson spun around, only to catch a flash of movement disappearing into the darkness. "Someone's here," Maya whispered, voice barely audible. "And they don't want us to find out the truth." Suddenly, the tunnel was plunged into chaos. Shouts echoed, weapons clashed, and the unmistakable groans of undead grew louder as more of the horde poured in. Back in the safe zone, Captain Morales received a disturbing report over the radio. Several key survivors were missing, including some trusted guards. Panic was spreading like wildfire. A tense meeting was called in the command center. "We have a mole," Morales announced grimly. "Someone feeding information to the enemy, and maybe even leading the horde inside." Whispers filled the room. Jackson's mind raced. Could Sarah, who had just returned, be involved? Or was the traitor someone even closer? Determined to uncover the truth, Jackson and a small group returned to the tunnel's entrance, searching for clues. There, they found signs of struggle, and a hastily scrawled message on the wall: "The end is only the beginning." The words chilled Jackson to the bone. Someone was orchestrating this nightmare from within, manipulating both the living and the dead. As the walls of the safe zone trembled under relentless assault, alliances began to fracture. Old friends accused each other. Fear turned neighbor against neighbor. In one desperate confrontation, Jackson faced Marcus, his longtime companion. "Tell me the truth," Jackson demanded. "Are you part of this?" Marcus's eyes darkened. "You don't understand what's coming. We have to adapt, or we're finished." Before Jackson could react, alarms blared, another breach. This time, at the southern wall. The last safe zone, once a beacon of hope, was now a powder keg ready to explode. Jackson realized then the harshest truth of all: in dead America, survival meant trusting no one, not even yourself. The southern wall had been breached. Screams and gunfire erupted in a terrifying cacophony, echoing through the once peaceful safe zone. Flames lit the sky, casting eerie shadows over the crumbling barricades. Captain Morales barked orders, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Hold the line. Don't let them get any closer." Jackson's mind raced as he fought alongside the remaining survivors. Each step forward was a gamble, every breath a gift. The undead poured in relentlessly, but worse than the mindless horde was the knowledge that a traitor walked among them, guiding their downfall. Amid the firefight, Jackson caught a glimpse of someone slipping through the smoke toward the command center, a figure moving with purpose, avoiding both the dead and the living. His heart sank. Could it be Marcus? Or someone else? He pushed through the crowd, desperate to intercept the shadowy figure. As he turned a corner, a hand grabbed his arm. It was Sarah, eyes wide with urgency. "There's something you need to see," she whispered. "I found it in the med bay, a transmission. Someone's coordinating the attacks from inside." Jackson followed her to the dimly lit room. On a cracked monitor flickered a grainy video feed showing parts of the safe zone, the breaches, the defenses, even the survivors moving about their desperate routines. A voice crackled over the speaker, cold and mechanical. "They think they can survive. They're wrong. We will tear down their walls, piece by piece." Jackson clenched his fists. The betrayal was deeper than he feared. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. The locks engaged. They were trapped. "Who did this?" Sarah demanded, panic creeping into her voice. Before Jackson could answer, the video feed shifted, revealing a masked figure standing in the shadows of the control room, someone they once called ally. The screen went dark. Outside, the safe zone trembled as the undead surged forward. The line between friend and foe was now obliterated. Every step forward was shadowed by suspicion. Jackson and Sarah exchanged a grim look. The fight was no longer just for survival, it was a fight for the soul of what remained. Trust was a luxury dead America no longer afforded. Ready for part 6? It will dive into desperate escapes, uncovering shocking secrets, and the survivors' struggle to reclaim hope. "You said." The cold steel door sealed the med bay behind Jackson and Sarah, the faint hum of the locking mechanism echoing ominously. They were trapped, caught between the encroaching undead outside and a traitor's calculated trap inside. Panic threatened to rise, but both knew they had to keep their wits. Sarah's eyes scanned the room. "There has to be another way out," she said, moving toward a ventilation shaft near the ceiling. It was narrow, barely large enough to crawl through, but it offered a sliver of hope. Jackson hoisted her up, then followed, the air thick with dust and the faint scent of decay. As they wriggled through the cramped shaft, the muffled sounds of chaos filled the corridors outside, the clash of steel, frantic shouts, and the ever-present groans of the dead. Emerging in a forgotten hallway, they found evidence of a recent struggle, broken weapons, discarded supplies, and blood smeared on the walls. The betrayal was close, too close. Sarah pointed toward a faded map pinned to a cracked wall. "This passage leads to the old underground subway system. It might be our only chance to escape." Jackson nodded. "If we can reach the other side of the city, maybe we can warn the other survivor groups, or find a new safe zone." But as they moved cautiously through the dark tunnels, whispers followed them, faint, barely audible. Was it the undead, or something worse? Suddenly, a low, guttural voice echoed off the walls. "You can't hide. They will find you." Jackson froze. "Who's there?" A shadow emerged, a survivor, but gaunt and haunted. His eyes darted nervously. "They're watching, the dead, the ones who control them. They know who you are." Sarah's heart pounded. "Who controls the dead?" The man looked around, then whispered, "It's not just infection anymore. It's a sickness of the mind. Someone's using it, turning the dead into weapons, controlled by will, by fear." Jackson's grip tightened. The fight was no longer just physical, it was psychological warfare on a scale he'd never imagined. As they pressed forward, the walls seemed to close in, the shadows growing longer, deeper. In Dead America, the nightmare was far from over. And with every step, the survivors learned the hardest lesson of all: sometimes, the greatest danger is the one you cannot see. Would you like me to continue with Part 7? It will reveal shocking truths and the survivors' final gambit to reclaim their world. Jackson, Sarah, and the mysterious survivor pressed deeper into the labyrinthine subway tunnels, the air growing colder and more oppressive with every step. The faint flicker of distant lights revealed graffiti warnings and hastily scrawled messages, echoes of those who had fled before them. "We're running out of time," the survivor muttered. "They're coming. The ones who command the dead, and the living puppets who serve them." Sarah glanced at Jackson, determination burning in her eyes. "We have to stop this. If the undead are being controlled, there has to be a source, a mastermind." Their footsteps echoed as they approached a large chamber, where the remnants of an old control room lay half destroyed. Flickering monitors and broken consoles hinted at a forgotten technology still alive beneath the city. Suddenly, static filled the airwaves. A chilling voice crackled over the old speakers: "Welcome, survivors. You think you can escape? You think you can fight fate?" Jackson's jaw clenched. "Show yourself." A figure stepped from the shadows, silhouetted by the faint glow of malfunctioning screens. It was Marcus. "I'm sorry, Jackson," Marcus said, voice cold and unyielding. "This world is broken. Only by embracing the new order can we survive." Sarah's eyes widened in disbelief. "You've been controlling the undead?" Marcus nodded. "I have the means, technology, science. The infection is just the beginning. Together, we can build a new world where the dead serve the living." Jackson's grip on his crossbow tightened. "At the cost of free will? At the cost of humanity?" Marcus smiled, a cruel and bitter expression. "Humanity is a relic. Adapt or perish." Before Jackson could react, alarms blared, reinforcements closing in. The battle was about to reach its final, desperate stage. Sarah whispered, "We have to destroy the control system. Cut off the command." Jackson nodded. "For all we've lost, and for all we still have left." The fight for Dead America was no longer just survival. It was a battle for the future of mankind. Would you like me to write Part 8, the thrilling conclusion? The control room erupted into chaos as Marcus's loyal followers, both living and undead, poured in from every corridor. The flickering lights cast long shadows, turning the space into a war zone between desperation and determination. Jackson and Sarah moved swiftly, dodging blows and firing with precision. Each second brought them closer to the heart of the control system, an array of consoles pulsing with ominous energy. "Cover me!" Jackson shouted, barreling toward the main console. Sarah and the survivor fended off attackers, their resolve unshakable. Sweat dripped down Jackson's face as he smashed buttons and yanked wires. Sparks flew. The screens began to flicker erratically. Outside the tunnels, the horde's frenzy slowed, confusion rippling through the ranks of the undead. The invisible strings controlling them were loosening. Marcus, sensing defeat, lunged toward Jackson with a last, desperate fury. The two clashed, a brutal fight of wills and survival. "You don't understand," Marcus hissed. "This world belongs to the strong." Jackson's counterstrike was fierce. "No. It belongs to those who fight for hope." With one final blow, Marcus collapsed, the twisted vision of control shattering. The control system died with a deafening silence. The undead ceased their advance, falling back into lifelessness, freed from manipulation. Jackson, Sarah, and the survivor emerged from the tunnels into the bleak dawn. The city lay in ruins, but the fight had rekindled something vital: hope. Trust was broken, and wounds ran deep, but the survivors stood united. The last safe zone had fallen, but from its ashes, a new beginning flickered. In Dead America, the greatest enemy was never just the dead, it was the loss of humanity. And humanity, against all odds, had survived. If you'd like, I can help you with summaries or scripts for each part next.